The warning. The Galactic Empire stretched across 1,000 star systems. Its fleets were unmatched, its armies feared, and its people believed no power could challenge them. To the Empire, the galaxy belonged only to those bold enough to take it. So when one of their scouting fleets entered the edge of an unmarked sector, no one thought much of it. The stars here were dim, the planets barren, and there were no records of any advanced civilization. It was just another forgotten corner of the galaxy, ready to be claimed by the Empire's flag. Admiral Kaler stood on the bridge of his flagship, a massive warship lined with weapons. He gazed at the dark sector before him with cold amusement. "Another dead region," he muttered. "No life, no claim. We will take it." But then something unusual appeared. A transmission. At first, it was faint, an old signal crackling through the void. The crew worked quickly, adjusting the receivers until the words became clear. Every officer on the bridge froze. The message was simple, only 4 words repeated endlessly. "Terran space. Do not enter." The crew exchanged uneasy looks. The voice in the transmission was not alien. It was human. Admiral Kaler raised an eyebrow, then laughed. "Terran. That's impossible. Humanity disappeared thousands of years ago. Legends, ghost stories told to frighten children. And yet, here they are, leaving a warning in the dark." His second-in-command shifted nervously. "Admiral, should we report this to the Council? If this is true, if humans still exist?" Kaler cut him off. "Exist? No. If they were still alive, the galaxy would know. The humans were warlike, yes, but they are gone. Their bones turned to dust long before our empire was born. This warning is nothing more than a relic, a piece of old data left to decay in space." He turned back to his fleet, arrogance shining in his eyes. "Terran space. Ha! Then let us claim it for the Empire." The ships advanced deeper into the sector. The warning kept repeating, echoing through the comms like a ghostly whisper. "Terran space. Do not enter." But the Empire did not listen. Soon, they discovered satellites, old, broken machines orbiting dead stars. Some looked damaged, others still faintly active, sending the same message again and again. The crew studied them, amazed at the technology. Even in their ruined state, the satellites were advanced, more advanced than anything the Empire currently built. The scans showed layers of unknown alloys and strange energy cores that still pulsed after millennia. But instead of fear, the Empire laughed. "These relics prove only one thing," Admiral Kaler said with pride. "Humanity is finished. They left behind toys. And we, the Empire, will take their place as true rulers of this galaxy." The fleet pushed onward, exploring further. They found ruined space stations drifting in silence, shattered by time. Some still had power, glowing faintly like embers refusing to die. The crews were amazed at how such structures could endure for thousands of years. Yet the message never stopped. "Terran space. Do not enter." It played from every ruin, every satellite, every system they passed. And then something happened. One of the stations suddenly activated. Lights flared across its surface. Massive panels turned, scanning the intruders. A deep hum filled the void. "Admiral, energy surge detected," shouted a crewman. Before they could react, ancient defense drones emerged from the station's docks. Small, angular machines, their hulls glowing with old but deadly power. The Empire fleet laughed again. "Drones. This is the great Terran defense." Kaler smirked. "Destroy them." Empire ships opened fire. The drones fought back with sharp, precise movements, their weapons striking with terrifying accuracy. For a moment, the Empire realized these machines, though ancient, were dangerous. But their numbers were small, and after a short battle, the Empire destroyed them all. The bridge erupted with cheers. Pathetic. So this is the last of humanity. Machines that crumble before us. The Terrans are nothing but ashes. But no one noticed that one drone had survived, damaged, burning, but still functional. It drifted into the darkness, its core glowing faintly. Inside its systems, a signal pulsed. A call. A warning. The drone sent it far, far into the depths of Terran space, and something answered. The crew didn't see it, the Admiral didn't hear it, but across the stars, hidden in forgotten systems, something ancient stirred. Humanity had been silent for thousands of years, but now they knew the Empire had entered their space. The message changed. From deep in the void, a new signal echoed through the Empire's channels, cutting through their comms with chilling clarity. You were warned. The bridge fell silent. Admiral Kaler's smile faltered for the first time. The fleet of the Galactic Empire floated in silence. The last message still echoed in their comms, heavy and sharp like a blade against the throat. You were warned. The words were not broken, not ancient, not corrupted. They were alive. Admiral, that was not from the ruins, whispered his second in command, voice trembling. That was real. That was recent. Kaler's jaw tightened. He hated fear on his bridge. Do not be fooled by ghosts. Someone found these old human systems and is playing tricks on us. Perhaps pirates, perhaps rebels, nothing more. But deep inside, Kaler felt something cold crawl down his spine. The bridge lights flickered. Sensors began to scramble, showing impossible readings. Energy signatures appeared and vanished, like shadows moving just outside of sight. The science officer looked pale. Admiral, we are detecting movement, not ships, not stations, something bigger. But the readings make no sense. Kaler's patience snapped. Enough. We are the Empire. Whatever hides here will fall before our power. Signal the fleet. Weapons ready. The order was carried out. Dozens of warships aligned, their cannons glowing, their shields raised. Against pirates, this show of power would be enough to terrify anyone. But the void remained silent. Then, without warning, the stars shifted. No, not the stars. The shadows. Massive outlines emerged, so dark they blended with the void. They were not on sensors until they wanted to be. The crew gasped. Ships, enormous ships. Not ruins, not relics. Living war machines, their black hulls covered in strange glowing lines, like scars of ancient battles. They moved with slow, terrifying grace, as if the void itself bowed before them. The insignia burned on their sides. A simple crest of Earth, a symbol the galaxy had not seen for 40,000 years. Terran vessels. The Empire fleet froze. For the first time in centuries, they felt small. The largest of the Terran ships spoke. Its voice thundered through every channel, clear and merciless. Terran space, off limits. Leave now. The crew looked at Kaler. This was his moment. Retreat or defiance. The Admiral clenched his fists. Pride burned hotter than fear. I will not be threatened by ghosts. He roared. Open fire. The Empire's warships unleashed their fury. Beams of energy and missile swarms tore through space, streaking toward the Terran vessels. The void lit up in a storm of color. The Terran ships did not move. The weapons struck their hulls and vanished. The shields shimmered faintly, absorbing everything as if the attack was nothing more than a breeze against a mountain. The bridge crew's faces turned pale. It had no effect, whispered one officer. Then the Terrans answered. One of their ships fired. Just one. A single beam of light, thin and quiet, unlike the roaring cannons of the Empire. The Empire's lead destroyer was erased. Not damaged, not crippled. Erased, like it had never existed. One moment it was there. The next it was a cloud of glowing dust. The bridge of Kaler's flagship fell into silence. Dozens of trained officers, hardened by years of war, stared in disbelief. The Terran voice returned. Leave. You were warned. Kaler's pride shook, but his rage burned hotter. Form up. Continue firing. Overwhelm them. Again, the fleet unleashed everything they had. Hundreds of blasts screamed across the void. Again, nothing. The Terran ships didn't even shift their formation. Then came the second strike. 3 more Empire ships vanished instantly, reduced to fragments by another precise blast. This time, no one cheered. No one spoke. The science officer whispered, voice breaking, Admiral, these readings, this is not technology we understand. Their power is impossible. But the Terrans still did not advance. They waited, watching, testing. It was mercy, and that mercy terrified the Empire more than death. Kaler slammed his fist on the command chair. We are the Empire. Retreat now, and the Council will brand us cowards. Fight. But even as he spoke, fear spread through the fleet. Captains hesitated. Some ships began to pull back on their own. Others cut comms, ignoring Kaler's commands. Discipline was breaking. Then, something far worse happened. The Terran flagship moved. Slowly, deliberately, it turned, revealing its full size. It was larger than any Imperial dreadnought, larger than any ship the Empire had ever built. Its surface shifted, opening like the wings of a beast. Inside, glowing cores pulsed with energy so bright that sensors went blind trying to measure it. The Empire fleet realized the truth. These were not just warships. They were arcs of war. Machines built for extinction. Kaler finally felt it, the one thing the Empire had not known for generations. Fear. His crew waited for his order. Retreat, or one last strike. Before he could answer, the Terran voice spoke again, softer this time, yet sharper than any blade. This is your only mercy. Leave Terran space. The next shot will not be a warning. The fleet was silent. One by one, the Empire captains began retreating, pulling their ships back, fleeing into the dark. Discipline was gone, replaced by primal survival. But Kaler, he did not move. Pride chained him to his command chair. He would not be remembered as the admiral who fled from ghosts. Signal the Council, he ordered quietly. Tell them, humanity lives. His second-in-command stared at him, horrified. Admiral, then they will come. The Empire will come with everything it has. And, his voice broke, we cannot win. Kaler's eyes stayed locked on the Terran flagship, burning with fury and shame. Better war than retreat. As his words faded, the Terran ship's lights grew brighter. The warning was over. Humanity had awakened. The council chamber of the Galactic Empire was the heart of power. It was a colossal hall, its walls plated in gold and silver, its ceiling glowing with the light of captured stars. Here, the rulers of 1,000 worlds gathered. They were not used to fear. They were not used to being challenged. But now, they listened to the impossible. The message from Admiral Kaler played on the chamber floor once again. His voice was strained, his face pale, but his words echoed with truth. Confirmed, Terran ships are active. They are not ruins. They are not myths. Humanity lives. Their technology is beyond anything we know. They gave us one warning. Leave Terran space. The chamber erupted in chaos. Voices rose, overlapping. This is madness. Humans are extinct. Admiral Kaler is a coward. He ran from phantoms. Yet his fleet is in ruins. Will you call that a phantom too? At the head of the chamber, High Chancellor Vera raised her hand. The voices fell silent. She was a tall woman with piercing silver eyes, known for her cold logic and her iron rule. Her words cut like a blade. Admiral Kaler is not a coward. He is alive. His report is clear. Humanity has returned. The chamber shuddered with shock. No one had dared to say it so directly. Then we must prepare, said Lord Hesh, one of the military ministers. His scaled face twitched with unease. If these Terrans truly exist, if their ships can erase destroyers in a single shot, then they are a threat to the Empire itself. Threat, scoffed Lady Sarah, head of the Economic Guild. No, they are an opportunity. Think of the technology we could seize, the resources of their hidden worlds. If they survived in silence for 40,000 years, they must have unimaginable weapons. We take them, and the galaxy belongs to us forever. The council split instantly. Some whispered of conquest. Others whispered of caution. Few dared whisper the truth. Fear. Vera stood silent as they argued, her gaze sharp, calculating. Then, finally, she spoke. Enough. Her voice echoed across the chamber. The arguing ceased. Humanity was erased once, she said coldly. History records it. Our ancestors destroyed them when they grew too bold. Now they rise again. We cannot allow it. If we retreat, the Empire shows weakness. If we allow them space, they will expand. They will challenge us. She leaned forward, her silver eyes like ice. There is only one choice: war. The chamber roared. Some cheered, others shouted in anger, but the decision had been made. The Empire would not retreat. While the Council argued, far away, deep within Terran space, the human ships remained still. They did not chase the retreating fleet. They did not strike again. They waited. On the bridge of the Terran flagship, Captain Marcus Vale watched the distant stars. His face was scared, his eyes old, yet sharp as steel. He had lived long enough to remember what silence meant. 40,000 years of hiding, 40,000 years of building in the shadows. Now the Empire had crossed the line. Status, he asked. His crew responded with calm precision. Enemy fleet retreating beyond the border. But their transmissions are spreading. The Empire knows we are here. Marcus closed his eyes. He had known this moment would come. For 40,000 years, humanity had prepared for one thing. Not peace, not discovery, but the inevitable return of war. Then it begins, Marcus whispered. He stood tall, turning to his officers. Signal the other fleets. Activate all defense networks. Humanity no longer hides. The bridge hummed as ancient systems awakened. Across the hidden sectors of Terran space, colossal machines stirred. Defense satellites powered on. Planetary shields flared into existence. Armies, frozen in stasis for generations, opened their eyes once more. The long sleep was over. Back in the Empire, the decision had already taken shape. A massive fleet was assembled, larger than anything seen in centuries. Hundreds of warships, dreadnoughts, carriers, and battle stations gathered. Their cannons glowed with energy. Their engines thundered. Admiral Kaler stood at the edge of the assembly, silent. He had seen the Terran power with his own eyes. He knew what was coming. Yet his orders were clear. Lead the fleet. Invade Terran space. Destroy humanity before they rise again. His second-in-command whispered, "Admiral, we should not do this. You saw them. You know we cannot win." Kaler's jaw clenched. Pride and duty warred inside him. But in the end, duty to the Empire chained him in place. "We fight," he said quietly. "We fight because the Empire commands it. And if we die, let history know that humanity's return was not met with silence." The fleet roared as it began its march toward Terran space. In the shadows, Terran intelligence watched it all. They listened to every Imperial transmission, tracked every ship, counted every weapon. One human officer turned to Marcus, her eyes wide. "They're bringing everything, sir. Every fleet, every weapon, every resource they have. The Empire is preparing to wipe us out." Marcus did not flinch. "Good." The officer blinked. "Good." Marcus' voice was calm, steady, unshaken. "They think we are prey. They think numbers will save them, but they do not understand." He turned, his scared face illuminated by the glow of the Terran insignia. "For 40,000 years, we waited. For 40,000 years, we built for this day. Let the Empire bring everything. Let them come with all their might." His voice grew harder, like iron. "They will learn what it means to fight humanity." The void of space was silent as the Imperial fleet approached the Terran border. Hundreds of ships stretched across the stars, their engines burning bright. Dreadnoughts, cruisers, and carriers moved in perfect formation. The fleet was so massive that even the starlight seemed drowned out by their presence. To most of the galaxy, the Empire's war fleets were symbols of absolute power. No enemy had stood against them in centuries. Planets surrendered without a fight. Civilizations bent their knees before the sight of Imperial banners. But here, at the edge of Terran space, the silence was different. It was heavy. It was watching. Admiral Kaler stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Triumph. His jaw was tight, his eyes fixed on the dark line of space ahead, the invisible border that humanity had declared as forbidden. He remembered the words that haunted his every night. Leave Terran space, and yet here he was, leading a fleet into it. "Status report," he said. "Fleet ready." "Admiral," his second-in-command replied nervously. "Scanners show nothing. No ships, no defenses, no signals. It's just empty space." Kaler frowned. He didn't believe it. Not after what he had seen. "Nothing is exactly what they want us to see," he muttered. As the Imperial fleet crossed the border, every Terran sensor lit up. In hidden bases carved into dead moons, alarms blared. On secret stations cloaked inside asteroid belts, human officers leaned forward with cold smiles. On fortified planets long hidden from the galaxy, armies stirred. The Terran Defense Network had waited for this moment for 40,000 years. Inside the Terran flagship, Captain Marcus Vale watched the enemy fleet moving deeper into human space. He looked calm, but his crew felt the weight of his silence. "Enemy fleet has crossed the border," a young officer reported. "They're moving fast. No hesitation." Marcus gave a slow nod. "Of course. They think this is an invasion. But they don't understand. They've already lost. Another officer turned to him. "Orders, Captain." Marcus stood. His voice was steady, his words sharp. "Wait. Let them come closer. Let them think we are weak. Then, show them what 40,000 years of silence created." Back on the Imperial flagship, Kaler felt the unease growing in his crew. The silence of Terran space was unnatural. No patrol ships. No warning signals. Not even debris. It felt like flying into the mouth of a predator. "Admiral," said one officer, "with respect, this feels wrong. Perhaps we should slow the fleet and—" Before he could finish, alarms screamed. Contact. Multiple signatures, appearing from nowhere. Kaler spun toward the main display. His eyes widened. All around the fleet, space itself seemed to tear open. Black shapes emerged from the void, massive ships cloaked in shadows. They had no identification codes, no energy trails, no warning. One moment the void was empty. The next it was filled with giants, Terran warships. And they were nothing like Imperial vessels. Imperial ships were elegant, built for intimidation as much as war. But Terran ships were brutal, angular, and armored so heavily they looked more like fortresses than ships. Their weapons glowed with unfamiliar energy, sharp and deadly. Kaler's blood ran cold. He remembered the first time he saw one of those ships. He remembered how quickly it destroyed his fleet. And now, there were hundreds. Terran fleet is surrounding them, Marcus officer reported. They didn't even notice until it was too late. Marcus gave a thin smile. As planned, cloaks held. 40,000 years of silence was not wasted. He raised his hand. "Signal the Empire." A transmission burst through the Imperial fleet. Every ship, every screen, every comm channel lit up with the same image. Marcus Vale, standing tall on the bridge of his ship. His scarred face was calm, but his eyes burned with steel. "Imperial fleet," his voice thundered. "You were warned. Terran space is off limits. You ignored that warning. You came with fire and war in your hearts." His voice grew harder, colder. "Now you will learn the cost." The transmission cut. For a heartbeat, silence ruled the stars. Then the Terran fleet fired. The attack was unlike anything the Empire had ever seen. Terran weapons were not beams of light or streams of missiles. They were something far more terrifying. Energy lances ripped through dreadnought armor as if it were paper. Projectiles traveling at near-light speed struck like the fists of gods, shattering cruisers into molten fragments. Swarms of drones, small but deadly, cut through fighter wings with impossible precision. The Imperial fleet fired back with everything they had: plasma cannons, railguns, torpedoes. Space lit up like a storm of fire. But against Terran shields, their weapons barely scratched. Kaler gripped the edge of his console, his heart racing. One after another, Imperial ships exploded across the battlefield. "Admiral, we're losing destroyers on the left flank. Carriers are being torn apart. They knew we were coming. They're everywhere." Kaler's voice shook, but he forced himself to speak. "Hold formation. Fight back. Show them the Empire doesn't break." But deep inside, he knew. This was not a battle. This was an execution. On the Terran flagship, Marcus watched the destruction unfold. His crew reported calmly. "Enemy losses, 20%. Their formations are breaking." "They're panicking, sir. Their fleet isn't built for this kind of war." Marcus' face was unreadable. "Of course it isn't. They thought they ruled the galaxy. They thought numbers made them strong. But war has changed. Humanity has changed. Another officer looked at him nervously. "Sir, do we destroy them all?" Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "No, let some escape. Let them carry the message home. The Empire needs to understand. This is only the beginning." His voice grew dark, almost like a shadow crossing the stars. "They will spread fear for us. Fear is the first weapon. War comes after." On the Imperial flagship, Kaler's face was pale. His fleet was shattered. Dozens of ships burned. Thousands of lives were gone in minutes. And now, he realized the truth. The Empire had not discovered a lost race. They had awoken a sleeping predator. He whispered to himself, barely audible, "Gods help us all." The capital of the Galactic Empire was a world of endless towers and golden skies. From orbit, its cities glowed like jewels, a shining symbol of power that had lasted for 10,000 years. But on this day, the heart of the Empire did not shine. It trembled. In the Grand Hall of the Imperial Council, the most powerful leaders of the galaxy gathered. Admirals, governors, lords, and ministers filled the chamber, their voices sharp, their fear poorly hidden. At the center stood Emperor Kadros himself, towering and calm, though his eyes carried fire. He waited in silence as Admiral Kaler entered. Kaler's uniform was torn, his face pale. He had returned alive, but his fleet had not. Every eye turned to him as he stepped forward. The hall grew silent. Even the air felt heavy. The Emperor's voice thundered. "Speak, Admiral. What happened beyond the Terran border?" Kaler's throat tightened. He had faced battles, uprisings, and warlords. He had stared death in the eyes, but never had he felt the same dread that filled him now. He took a breath. "My Emperor, we were ambushed. The Terrans were waiting for us. Their ships," his voice faltered, "their ships are beyond anything we have ever faced. Weapons that burn through our strongest armor. Shields that laugh at our fire. Drones that cut through squadrons like knives." Murmurs broke through the chamber. Some laughed in disbelief. Others whispered fearfully. The Emperor raised a hand, and silence returned. "How many did you lose?" Kaler lowered his head. His voice was a whisper. 70% of the fleet, destroyed. Thousands dead. We barely escaped." The words hit the council like a hammer. A governor slammed his fist on the table. "Impossible. No race could stand against our fleets. This is a trick, a lie." Another minister shook his head, his voice trembling. "I warned you. I warned you not to provoke them. The old record spoke of Terran wrath, and now it has returned." The governor spat. Old myths and ghost stories. The Terrans were extinct. Kaler's eyes burned as he snapped back. "They are not extinct. They are stronger than ever. I saw it with my own eyes. We are not dealing with savages or survivors. We are dealing with predators." The chamber filled with shouts. Some demanded war, others begged for retreat. The Emperor remained silent, his gaze fixed on Kaler. Finally, he spoke again. "Did they say anything?" Kaler hesitated. His mind echoed with the words, the cold voice of the human commander. "Yes," Kaler said quietly. "They sent a message. Terran space is off limits. And then, they let us live. They wanted us to carry that message home." The chamber froze. For the first time in centuries, the Empire had not been the predator. They had been the prey. Far from the council chamber, the message spread like fire. Soldiers whispered it in barracks. Merchants spoke of it in marketplaces. Captains muttered it on starships. Terran space is off limits. Fear began to seep into the cracks of the Empire. Civilizations that once bowed without question now hesitated. If the Empire could be defeated, if the Empire could bleed, then perhaps it could fall. Meanwhile, in Terran space, Marcus Vale stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars. His crew moved with silent precision, carrying out tasks with calm discipline. "Transmission from our border fleets, sir," an officer reported. "The survivors escaped, exactly as planned." Marcus nodded slowly. "Good. Their fear will spread faster than any weapon." Another officer frowned. "Sir, shouldn't we strike again while they're weak? Crush them completely." Marcus turned. His eyes were sharp, cold, unyielding. "No, not yet. We don't fight wars like they do. We don't need to conquer their territory. We don't need to destroy their cities." He leaned closer, his voice low. "We only need them to fear us. Fear is stronger than conquest. Fear will tear the Empire apart from within." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Their captain was right. But there was something terrifying in his calmness. Back in the Empire, Admiral Kaler sat alone in his quarters, staring at the stars beyond the window. He could still see it, the flash of Terran weapons, the fire consuming his fleet, the calm face of the human captain. They let us live. The thought gnawed at him. He had commanded fleets for decades, but this was the first time he felt like a child before a storm. His door opened, and a shadow entered. It was Minister Elira, one of the Emperor's closest advisors. "You did what you could," she said softly. Kaler shook his head. "No, I led us to death. And worse, I brought back their warning. Now the whole Empire trembles." Elira's expression hardened. "Then let them tremble. The Council may fight among itself, but I see the truth in your eyes. The Terrans are not an enemy we can defeat, not with force." Kaler looked at her sharply. "Then what? Shall we bow? Shall the greatest empire in history kneel to ghosts?" Elira's eyes glinted with something he could not read. "Perhaps kneeling is the only way to survive. Or perhaps we find another way." Her voice lowered to a whisper. "Not all in the Empire will accept fear. Some will rise, others will rebel. The galaxy is changing, Admiral. And we are standing at the edge of a storm." In the council chamber, the Emperor sat alone after the others had left. He replayed Kaler's words in his mind. 70% of the fleet destroyed. They let us live. His fists clenched. His empire had never known fear. But now, the Terrans had returned, not as allies, not as rivals, but as executioners. The Emperor whispered to himself, his voice quiet but filled with steel. "If they think they can frighten the Empire into submission, they are mistaken. We will not bow. We will not run. We will fight." But in the shadows of his heart, even the Emperor felt it. Fear, cold and heavy. The warning spread faster than light. On border worlds, traders whispered it in markets. In mining colonies, workers muttered it over their rations. On warships, soldiers repeated it in hushed voices. The Empire attacked the Terrans. 70% of the fleet destroyed. Survivors sent home with a warning. Survivors sent home with a warning. At first, many thought it was just a rumor. But then came proof. Shattered ships drifted back to friendly space, hulks burning and broken. Survivors told the same story. Ships that moved like predators, weapons that cut through armor like paper, and a human commander who spared them only to deliver a message. Terran space is off limits. The galaxy began to whisper. In the city world of Farthus, smugglers gathered in hidden bars. One leaned close to another, his voice sharp with excitement. "Do you know what this means? The Empire isn't invincible anymore. There's someone stronger out there. Someone the Empire fears." Another smuggler, older and wiser, shook his head. "Stronger doesn't mean safer. You want to deal with humans. Fine. But don't expect mercy. If they can tear the Empire's fleets apart, imagine what they'll do to us." Still, the whispers grew. Some feared. Some hoped. For the first time in centuries, cracks began to appear in the Empire's iron rule. On the desert world of Kessel, a small rebellion stirred. Their leader, a young woman named Ryla, stood before her fighters. You all heard the news. The Empire bleeds. The great fleets burn. The Terrans reminded the galaxy that even empires can fall. Now is our chance. If the Empire fears them, then we will rise. The rebels cheered. For years, they had fought hopeless battles. Now, for the first time, they believed victory was possible. In the cold void, far from the Empire's heart, the Terrans watched. On the bridge of his flagship, Marcus Vale studied reports from across the galaxy. His officers brought updates one after another. "Sir, rebellion activity is rising on at least 12 border worlds. Smugglers and free traders are speaking openly about Terran power. Even some imperial governors are hesitating to send their taxes and soldiers." Marcus listened quietly. His expression never changed. "Good," he said at last. "Fear is spreading, and with it, doubt. The Empire will start to crack from within. We don't need to invade. We only need to wait." One officer frowned. "But sir, what if the Emperor rallies them? What if fear makes them stronger, not weaker?" Marcus turned, his gaze sharp. "Then we remind them again. Fear doesn't fade when you feed it. It grows." Meanwhile, in the Empire's palace, Emperor Kedros met with his advisors in secret. Minister Illyra's voice was calm, but her words were heavy. "My Emperor, the whispers are spreading faster than we can silence them. Our propaganda cannot keep up. The people do not believe us. They believe the Terrans." The Emperor's jaw tightened. "Then we will remind them who rules the galaxy. Crush the rebels. Silence the smugglers. Show the people that we are still strong." Admiral Kaler stepped forward, his face grim. "With respect, my Emperor, force will not stop this. Every ship we send, every soldier we kill, only proves the Terran's warning true. The people do not fear us now. They fear them." The Emperor's eyes burned with anger. "Are you suggesting we bow to these ghosts? That the greatest empire in history should tremble at a single fleet?" Kaler's voice was steady. "I am suggesting, sire, that we learn before we fight. If we do not understand their power, we will lose everything." The chamber fell into silence. No one dared to speak against the Emperor. But in their hearts, many knew Kaler was right. Far across the galaxy, a secret meeting took place. Leaders of smaller civilizations, once subjects of the Empire, gathered in shadows. The Draveri, tall and insect-like, clicked their mandibles nervously. The Yilari, thin and pale, spoke in whispers. The Sharn, scaled and fierce, growled low. They argued, they feared, but finally one spoke the words all of them were thinking. "If the Terrans can stand against the Empire, perhaps we should stand with them." The room grew still. None trusted humans. None even knew what humans truly wanted. But the thought was dangerous. And dangerous thoughts spread faster than fire. Back aboard his flagship, Marcus Vale looked out at the stars. His second-in-command, Captain Ilara, stood beside him. "You've shaken the galaxy, Marcus," she said. "But fear is a dangerous weapon. It can make enemies turn on each other, or it can unite them against you." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Then let them come. If the galaxy unites, we will show them what humanity really is. Not conquerors, not rulers, but the storm they should never have awakened." Ilara studied him. His calm voice carried something darker beneath it, something more than strategy. It was almost personal. "Why do you hate them so much?" she asked softly. Marcus's gaze stayed on the stars. "Because once, long ago, they thought humanity was weak. They chained us, broke us, hunted us." His fists clenched. "But we survived. And now, the hunters know what it means to be prey." Back in the capital, Emperor Kedros stood on his balcony, staring at the night sky. The stars had always been his empires to command. But now, each one seemed like an eye watching him. For the first time in his rule, he felt something he had never known before. Doubt. The galaxy was no longer silent. It boiled with fear, rebellion, and whispers of change. On world after world, citizens asked the same question. If the Terrans could humble the Empire, what else could they do? In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Kedros stood in his war chamber. Around him flickered star maps, glowing red where rebellion spread. Entire sectors now smoldered with unrest. He slammed his hand on the table. "They think the Terrans will save them. They think the Empire is weak. I will show them strength." His generals shifted uneasily. Admiral Kaler finally spoke. "My Emperor, if we strike now, we risk everything. The Terrans are not like the others. We cannot defeat them with brute force." Kedros's eyes blazed. "Then what do you suggest? That we kneel before these ghosts from the past?" Kaler's silence was his answer. The Emperor turned away, but in his heart, unease gnawed at him. Meanwhile, far beyond Imperial space, the Terran fleet gathered. On the flagship's bridge, Marcus Vale studied reports from across the galaxy. His voice was calm, but every word carried steel. "The Empire bleeds from within. Their colonies rebel. Their subjects whisper. They are already falling apart." Captain Ilara, his second-in-command, frowned. "But what comes after? If the Empire collapses, chaos will spread. Civilizations will burn. The galaxy may beg us to rule in their place." Marcus's gaze hardened. "We are not here to rule. We are here to remind them. Humanity does not kneel, and humanity does not forgive." The storm finally broke on the border world of Vera. Rebels there rose against their imperial governor, chanting Terran names they barely understood. Imperial troops fired into the crowds, but the people did not run. They fought with stolen weapons and desperate courage. Then the sky darkened. Terran ships descended, black and silent, like predators circling prey. They did not fire. They did not need to. The mere sight of them made Imperial soldiers drop their rifles and flee. The rebels roared in victory. For the first time, a world tore itself free of the Empire's chains, under Terran shadow. The message was clear. One act of rebellion became 10. 10 became 100. 100 became a storm. The galaxy was shifting, and the Empire could no longer stop it. In his throne room, Emperor Kedros sat in silence. The reports before him were filled with failure. Rebellion spreading. Fleets deserting. Governors refusing orders. At last, he whispered the words he had sworn never to say. We cannot win. His ministers exchanged fearful glances. Some nodded, some remained silent, but all of them knew the truth. The Empire was dying, not from Terran weapons, but from Terran fear. Back aboard his flagship, Marcus Vale stood before his officers. "The galaxy watches us," he said. "Some will beg for our protection. Others will beg for our destruction. But all of them will remember one truth." He paused, letting the silence sharpen every word. "Terran space is off limits. Our worlds are ours. Our people are ours. Anyone who dares cross that line will pay in fire." His officers struck their fists against their chests in silent salute. But Ilara watched him carefully. There was something deeper in his voice now. Not just warning, not just defense. It was vengeance. Elsewhere, whispers spread faster than any fleet. The Draveri sent envoys to Terran space, offering alliances. The Jarn declared independence from the Empire. The Yilari openly rebelled, carrying Terran banners they had never seen. The galaxy was breaking free, but it was not free at all. It was falling under the shadow of humanity. And still, the Terrans waited. They did not invade. They did not conquer. They did not demand tribute. They simply watched. From the darkness of space, their fleets hovered like storm clouds, ready to strike again if the Empire, or anyone else, dared to test them. On his command deck, Marcus Vale looked out at the stars. His words were quiet, meant only for himself. 40,000 years ago, they thought humanity was gone. They thought we were forgotten. Now they know the truth. He leaned forward, his voice cold as steel. Humanity does not vanish. Humanity waits. The stars reflected in his eyes like fire. And when we return as a storm. And so the galaxy whispered a new law, one stronger than the Emperor's decree, one more feared than his fleets. Terran space is off limits, and none dared to cross it again.